Oh, we're live. Hi, sorry. Hi, Connor. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Hello, hello.
To start the show, I would love for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So, you started your career. Actually, you started your career as an entrepreneur. So, after college, you started a company, and then later on, you work as a machine learning engineer at Helm.ai and Scale AI before co-founding Unify. Maybe we could start with like, what are some core lessons that you've learned early on in your career, kind of shape you into who you are today?
Oh yeah, totally. Maybe like going experience by experience. So back in school, I studied EE, so I didn't study CS. I kind of learned coding on the side. Most of my school coding experience was in MATLAB, which was sort of more of the like mathy version. Did a bunch of sort of like information theory. Really fell in love with machine learning there. Started a company with one of my best friends right out of school, doing automated sports analytics from computer vision, which was cool and which was super fun. I think one of the really interesting things about starting a company right out of school, you kind of like set the tone and the pace of what work is,
Mhm.
because it's all like on your head. You know what I mean? We, like, to be clear, didn't know anything when we were doing this. It was like we were making it up as we went. We had no idea what it meant to like start a company or like run a company. We were like, 21 new grads. We're like, let's do it. We would like sit down and send 1,000 emails every day and like, call people, work on product like all day. It was very sort of the like thing that you imagine a startup is.
Yeah.
But sort of learned, like, I would say a lot about how to like keep a really high pace, how to have a lot of agency and autonomy, right? Like right from the get-go, there was nobody to tell us what to do or how to work or how to like, what to do next. And so we had to figure that out. And so that was like, I think a really great way to start off my career, which was really interesting. And then I joined Helm, which was a self-driving company, very small self-driving shop. It was like 15 people when I joined. I think at the time it was 9 math PhDs, a physics
Oh,
PhD,
wow.
an electrical engineering PhD, and then 3 software engineers.
You
Um,
basically joined a PhD program.
yeah, I basically joined like a research lab, which was super fun. It really was like I mean, everybody was talking about like uh, you know like uh, like their math PhD like theses at lunch and at dinner, and so I did not get as I do not have a math PhD, but I feel like I do, or at the very least, I feel like I got close. From just like chatting with folks, which was really interesting. And beyond just like the math, like was able to steal a lot of mental models of them about how to think about research, how to think about making progress on really difficult problems. Like one of the really incredible things, I think, and one of the really difficult things I mean, look, I'm not a math PhD, but from what I would hear from them is sort of like being able to make progress, even though you're not like, even though it may not feel like you're making progress, know you're making progress towards some like really long-term difficult problem. And especially in self-driving, that was like a very critical skill to have. And like, as we've started this company now, like is a very critical skill to have, to feel like, we're not going to IPO tomorrow, but like feel like we're making progress towards that, even though it's like a many-year goal. A lot of like really interesting and like important, I think, technical learnings I had there too, around like how to actually do machine learning, how to like get it to work, things like that. And then when I joined Scale, originally joined the new products team, which quickly became the GIS team. Again, another lesson in like grit, I would say. It was like a very challenging sort of product vertical for us to spin up and like create. Had these like crazy quality requirements, crazy cost requirements as well. Did that for a long time. Learned a lot of like not just like technical work, but operational work too, about how to like get people to do things very well. I had this thesis joining Scale that uh, you would like get very good at product and product engineering very quickly, because you like, we had this like sort of captured workforce of people who used our tool 60 hours a week, 40 hours a week, whatever it was. And it was like their day-to-day life. And we like would push something. And if it was good, you would hear about it immediately. And if it was bad, you would really hear about it immediately. You know what I mean? Because people like lived in that tool and like really, really worked in that tool. And it was sort of like the way that they made their livelihood. So it was kind of this crucible of like, learning what's good and what's bad in sort of like a workflow sense and a product sense. And then after that, I joined sort of the platform-wide ML team, the core ML team, the CVML team that supported a bunch of different product verticals, and was able to kind of like repeat a bunch of learnings across other labeling queues, and sort of like take a much like larger stance, which was super interesting. One of the cool things at scale that I learned, because we were able to see sort of the data labeling distributions of sort of the whole industry, you could get this really great intuition for like what everyone's working on and why, and how people are thinking about problems. Which is, then also enabled me, like now as we've started this company, to like have a lot of different lenses on problems and sort of think things through in a bunch of different angles and ways.
For sure. I have so many questions from there. Like for data labeling and everything. So like obviously scale, like it's like sold at a very high price to one of the biggest tech company in the world. So like what's your thought on like, what makes them successful? And then like what does that mean to like, labeling data? Obviously like everybody knows like data is like very important. Make sure it's clean, make sure it's like useful, yada yada yada. But like what does that mean? And then also lately, I feel like people say the same thing about like companies like Mercor or like some other company who are doing data labeling related things. Maybe we could talk about like from like generally as a CTO, like why is it important? And then, how is enterprise actually buying these things?
Yeah. It's like a super interesting topic. If you think about the like problem of machine learning, right? Like you basically are fitting some like mathematical model to some distribution of data, right? That distribution of data is your training data. With LLMs now, much of that sort of initial distribution you do via unsupervised learning, basically this like massive web scale data set. And so you sort of have this breadth in the data that is really important, which is sort of one of the big benefits of LLMs now compared to the machine learning I used to do back in self-driving when it was like sort of vision, although we were doing like a lot of unsupervised stuff there too, where you would like have to give it like a bunch of examples, and then the not just the labels, but also the distribution of what you're labeling on top of was really important, because that would define your generalizability of the model, right? Like there's always this idea of like in distribution, out of distribution data. Hopefully this will all come together in a second, where let's say you're a self-driving company and you need to, you want to drive in San Francisco, right? You can label a bunch of data in San Francisco and you can train a bunch of models and they're really, really good. You need them to still be really high quality, right? You can't have like wrong data. Like if you're training on wrong data, like wrong labels, then you'll get wrong predictions out. But one of the really interesting things at scale, and sort of the like thing that I think a lot of people discounted underwriting scale, was the need for more and more and more data to be labeled sort of all the time, because not only is there sort of a large world of stuff that you want to know what's going on in, like, when you want to like train for San Francisco, it's like actually pretty different than training for, New Delhi, if you were to go there, or London, or, whatever other city or country you want to operate in. But on top of that, distributions shift over time, right? Like the types of things that people dress and wear change over time. You probably have noticed like, it's almost Halloween. You will see a million Waymos on the street this last weekend and this weekend, because they all drive to get the really weird distribution of data, which is people in costumes. And that like actually matters and changes, because like you don't want the Waymo to hit somebody because they're wearing like a dinosaur costume, or like or something similar, right? And like the ways that people dress actually change, like not just seasonally, but also like over the years. And that like basically means that there's sort of always this need as a like CTO, like what is the thing that I care about today with LLMs? Much of the cost, actually like a huge amount of the cost of LLMs, a majority of the cost is actually in training, right? Is sort of the like compute and energy required to go in and train these models. And yes, like the data labeling is very expensive and is a big part of the cost, but I get to reuse that every single time, right? And so I'm like, should be really willing to pay for the highest quality labels possible. Not only because it will give me the highest quality model out, but also I can kind of amortize that cost over 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 model generations, as long as they're high quality, to sort of have this like foundation of good data, when really like the marginal cost is instead, something else, which is like energy or compute or something like that. And so I think that's like, I think that's like why they're like there's so many successful businesses, I think, selling this and reselling it because it's like important, it's needed. There's kind of like an ongoing need for it. Like we're not going to just like hit a point where we're like, we have enough label data, amazing, like this is great. And then on the flip side, right, like I think the thing that made scale really, really special, or I guess like furthermore, like the thing that made scale really special, there's this incredible talent density there of people, just like everyone I worked with, from engineering to ops to product, was just brilliant, just like absolutely amazing. And everybody worked really hard. Like one of the core values we had was run through walls. And it was just this like so pervasive that every single time there was some hilariously impossible problem, it just got solved like shockingly fast. It was just like wild.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Why don't we talk about, I feel like I hear you about like, the data labeling. It's kind of like, because of people can reuse the data, you purchase the highest quality of data. It's kind of like you purchase the highest quality of what, oil or something like, and then like, it can just like run faster. Why don't we talk about how you started Unify with your co-founder? And I know that like, you from the technical end, you have like worked on a lot of like machine learning problems. And then like your co-founder, I think he used to work at Ramp, seeing Ramp at like growing at a very high scale. Why don't we talk about the go-to-market function in general? Like, how is like your thesis on like the go-to-market search problem, and how do you kind of like solve it?
Yeah, totally. So before Unify, I didn't work in go-to-market at all, right? I worked like in self-driving, I worked at scale.
The opposite of go-to-market.
Yeah, right. Totally the opposite of go-to-market. Austin had worked sort of in go-to-market doing growth, right? He was PM on the growth team at Ramp, and had a bunch of interesting learnings. I was working on a bunch of stuff sort of on the side, like wanted to do, this is back in 2022, like pre-ChatGPT. It just like, it felt, in like March of 2022, it felt like we were in the middle of the LLM revolution. I was like, this is amazing. This is going to change the way everybody does anything. This is like, like Bloom was the big model that came out back then. It was like, some people will like know that reference. This is like an early LLM that like, now you look back on it, was just like complete trash. It was like, ChatGPT hadn't come out yet. It came out in November of 22. Like this is like Code DaVinci 3 sort of era of models, like 8K token context window, et cetera, et cetera. Little did I know that like, a year later, the world would be completely lit on fire and ChatGPT would have like 100 million users. And so I was working on a bunch of side projects, basically figuring out like, I was really obsessed with this idea of like just huge amounts of unstructured but semantically rich data that people aren't going to go out and process, but now we can sort of pull and like interesting insights, interesting structure out of, and things like that. Do you know the website Wirecutter?
You know what? Maybe I have heard of it.
It's like the New York Times wire, like, when you look up like best nonstick pan, and it's like, here's the top 10 best, and it's like, best overall, best budget, like best, cost is no option.
Damn, that's so specific. You read the New York Times? I'm just kidding.
I know this one site I do. I it's like a hobby in my family to like buy the best product. Like, my uncle will buy a like $20 pan and spend like 10 hours reading reviews. Yeah, exactly. This is like, they have these like listicles, right? So back in 2022, I was working a side project that was basically like, how do we build like the Wirecutter best top 10, but using LLMs, using sort of all of the reviews on the internet. So there's a bunch of scrapes of like Amazon reviews, Shopify site reviews. And I was working a side project to basically do this, right? So to like create this like top 10 list. You can't see over Zoom. I'm like really tall. I'm like 6'5". It's like hard to find sleeves that are long enough. But like on page 5 of the reviews of a shirt, somebody will be like, oh my God, I bought this shirt for my husband. He's so tall. Shirts never fit him, but this shirt happened to fit. And like it's a long sleeve shirt. Her husband's tall. Like usually shirts don't fit him, but this one did. So you can guess that the sleeves are going to be long and like probably long enough. But that's like locked up on page 5 of the reviews, and I'm never going to read page 5, right? But LLMs will go read all 10,000 reviews on that shirt and like tell me that it's going to be the right fit. And so I was working on a side project, basically doing that, and it was like $15 a generation. It took like 20 minutes to run. It was like way too slow. It was awful, right? Like a terrible product experience. But every once in a while you would get these results out that were just like amazing, right? You were like, I would have never found this. This is perfect. I just like became obsessed with this, like, huge amount of data that's kind of like locked up that now we can pull interesting insights out of. I knew I like wanted to start a company doing something around LLMs. Like it was clear that it was going to kind of revolutionize work and sort of like everything that we did. I didn't want to start a company doing this Wirecutter thing because I didn't think it was like a good venture-backed business. I think somebody should do it as a side project because it would be really cool. And LLMs are now good enough to do it like quickly and cheaply. Austin was talking about a bunch of like his thesis on sort of like go-to-market and automation. And I was like, oh, that's super interesting. That's kind of like the B2B version of what I'm talking about with sort of huge amounts of unstructured data, like here's like the AI version of it. And I sort of paused and I like reflected. I was like, I had worked in self-driving. I was like, do I want to sort of go to market tech company? Like in my mind, the like job, classic engineer, right? I was like, sales. And in my mind, sort of the job to be done of sales was persuasion, right? I was like, do I want to start a persuasion company? I thought like the job to be done of sales was how do I convince people to buy my product? Austin was like, LOL, like you don't know anything about sales, dude. Like go talk to some salespeople. And I was like, very reasonable. I'll like go talk to some salespeople. And the thing that I found really interesting, at least the great ones, at least in B2B, the thing that they actually describe as a search problem. They say, how do I find people and companies that have a problem that my product uniquely solves? And then it doesn't matter what you say. Like, yes, you have to be like credible and you have to like communicate effectively. But at the end of the day, like in kind of a funny way, the economy is just like solving each other's problems for money. And it's actually in everybody's best interest to just like solve people, like find people who have a problem because you're wasting your time if you can't actually like solve a reasonable problem. Like businesses don't actually buy things that don't like solve a problem. And when you frame it like that, when you frame it as a search problem, which again is search over huge amounts of unstructured, semantically rich data, it's like all of the internet on the data happening all the time. That is so important to businesses that they solve it today with this like really messy human ops problem, right? They hire like BDRs and SDRs, which like are like, brand new to the product. It's like a super high turnover position because the great ones get promoted out really quickly into AEs. The bad ones, they have like a clear number and they get exited really quickly. So they oftentimes don't know your product. They're like new to it. So you have to teach them how to even do the job, teach them how to do sales. But this is such an important problem to every company and startup and business that we like just put up with it historically. We've just like put up with it and do it. But now you can do that function, do that much of that job to be done with AI and LLMs and code, importantly, sort of running this in like a system. Which is not only like more valuable because it's like more efficient than people doing it, but you get repeatability, observability, scalability, sort of these three things I'm always like drumbeating internally of how do we let people do observable, repeatable, scalable go-to-market motions. That's really like 100 or 1,000x better and put much of the like job and the like, power in somebody who's like more of a systems thinker, who can run a scaled motion, who can still pull in these SDRs. Like we don't think SDRs are going away. They're just going to be pulled into the system in the right way at the right time to do things that humans are like sort of uniquely good at. And I really got obsessed with this idea of, reflecting back on my time, starting the company right out of school. Like we were working with, I don't know, like 100 D1 through D3 college tennis teams. And it was a slog to get these people to use our product. And the people who used it, I think, really, really loved it. They like found a lot of value from it. It was saving them like tens of hours a week. They were able to be better coaches. The players were able to be better players. And we just couldn't get it to all of the people who could use it and need it. And I think that's like really sad. And it's like, I have so many friends that have started companies or tried to start companies who had to shut it down, even though they built incredible products that solved a real problem because they couldn't quite figure out distribution. And now we can sort of turn go-to-market into, more of a like science or an engineering problem or more of a systems problem than anything else and help you like get great repeatability and you can iterate on it. You can learn on it over time. Another one of my like, kind of maybe too pithy things that I say a lot is sort of like, your sales team is the API into the market, right? Like it's how you sample it. It's how you like go out there and you send information out. And the more efficient that you can make that API, the better, right? and that's like really sort of like the core and the thesis of Unify is how do we like help people build repeatable, scalable, observable motions by like running the go-to-market search problem, largely in code, and sort of systematically in code, and then pull in people in the right ways at the right time.
I have so many questions. I love the word of like sales teams and your API into the market. It's
Yeah.
like a really good frame. Okay, so I have like maybe we could start with like a quick demo of the platform, but like from my understanding, or like, I think like, you guys pull a lot of actually the first time I met you guys were at the HubSpot. I think it was not inbound, but it was HubSpot event. And then like you guys have like a team demo the whole sales machine to me. I was like, can I use this? And then they're like, you're not qualified because the market advice. And then I was rejected by your API into the market.
Sorry. Yeah.
But I was like, this is actually really useful. Maybe we could talk about like how does the search work? So I know that a lot of it were like, did this person like comment on your LinkedIn, or like did they follow your page, or like a lot of these like social engagement or interactions. But I personally felt like, I was like building my own tools. Like I feel like first of all, like to do any plugin to LinkedIn, it's like freaking impossible. Like LinkedIn will ban you from like even using analytic tools, right? So like I guess like first of all, like what kind of data even matter? Like what would you collect, and then what is effective data? Because like I mean I would literally send my status, be like, hey friends, like can you like this? And then like they're not my ICP, they're not never gonna buy from me. So like I think one is like how do you define who like are these people qualified, right? And then like you said, like I think the search problem is like an actual problem, right? Like people don't really know what to put as a keyword, and then even they put in the keyword, the Perplexity or ChatGPT, like they're gonna be having like 3 answers that's ranked the highest on Google. So still like it's kind of like not niche enough. Like I guess maybe we could talk about like how are you connecting this through code?
Yeah. The way that I think about it, there's sort of like, any, at least an outbound, any sort of outbound motion has a couple of main parts to it. One, there's like a triggering event or sort of like reason for reaching out, right? That triggering event might be something that's like very timely. So it could be, for example, viewing your website, using web intent data. That's like one of our sources. It could be champion tracking. So you sold to them at one company and they moved to a different company. It could be new hires. They joined a new job. It could be LinkedIn engagement, sort of like, they're like, they followed your company or something similar. It could also be sort of this long tail of things that are really bespoke to your business. So one thing we launched crazy now, actually last October, was AI agents inside of the product. And so the idea is anything that your business might want to look for, we can go out and we can find it using sort of arbitrary web research, running at scale, right? And so the hard part of AI agents, or at least I think the hard part of AI agents is like not running it on a company, but running it on 100,000 companies every month and having it be the right 100,000 companies, having it follow all of your rules of engagement, et cetera, et cetera. And that's sort of like built into Unify. An example of that, we internally, right, we sell a tool that helps you do demand gen, right? What are some ways that we can look outside in and see if you would be a good fit and if you could use a tool to do demand gen more, or like, generate more pipeline. And that's really the way that I sort of formulate the search problem, is how can we like see outside in clues that you might have a problem that we can solve. Ways that we could do it, for example, we could see if you're hiring SDRs or BDRs. That means you're investing in the demand gen function. If you're hiring for demand gen like folks, so demand gen marketers, growth people, if you recently hired them as well. We can also do things like look at your website, the HTML on your website, and look to see if you have a intent tag for another intent-based tool. So like a Clearbit or 6 Sense or a demand-based tag on your website. That means that you're clearly investing in intent data. And we can send like a simple note that says, hey, like saw that you have the, maybe Clearbit tag on your website. How are you operationalizing that data? Like clearly you believe that it works. Like when was the last time that one of your reps sent an email to somebody who looked at your website? Oftentimes people will say, oh, it happens all the time. And then they look in their Salesforce and it was like 6 months ago. And it's like, okay, amazing. Like just like use that data in Unify and we'll help you sort of operationalize it much better. And then, with the AI agent, nobody, like, people won't have a data set for each of these like different bespoke, like really bespoke, company specific ones. One that I can talk about publicly, Flock Safety, for example, will run an agent that helps find, companies that have had break-ins on their property, on their businesses, and then we'll find the, head of security or the business owner and help reach out and say, hey, like, just wanted to address the incident where $9,000 of merchandise was stolen. With Flock Safety cameras, you could XYZ. And that sort of like helps to cover this really long tail that I think is really important, right? Like, I think the like, 2021 version of this company is really like, there's like a small list of 5 or 10 signals, right? Or maybe 15 signals. And then we like spin up this like big team of engineers that's like probably in another country to like make sure we have really low cost, and they like build a bunch of these data sets out. And then we try to just like cover the bulk of the distribution, and then every business maybe like gets access to those, and that's like as far as you can go. But the amazing thing with LLMs is that now you can do this for sort of any signal that you care about for your business. And then what we do is we build a really high quality agent that lets you run this, again, at scale. So the first thing is like reason to reach out or timing, which can be any, like a mixture of those things or any one of those things. There's then this like really important step that a lot of people forget about, which is join it against all your first party data and make sure that you are not reaching out to, the current customers, open sales opportunities, following rules of engagement. You're not double touching people or triple touching people like, with sales engagement. If you just reached out to them, you're following unsubscribes, et cetera, et cetera. That's this like very important step. That's actually like very, very challenging to do. When we first started the company now, 2.5, almost 3 years ago, we hired our 2 first engineers, Sam and Solomon. Brilliant. They're like the 2 best engineers I've ever worked with in my life. And me and Sam, both ML engineers from Scale, we sat down, we're like, we're going to do a bunch of AI. We looked at our roadmap, we looked at the product, and we're like, what's the most important thing to build? And then we spent the first 3 months building the best Salesforce integration that we could on the planet.
I have so many questions there. Like, if you hear me typing, I was like typing.
Yeah.
Whatever you're saying. Okay, so I wonder. So, like, when you come in, like, how do you build a product with a CEO? Like, I think this sounds like the worst problem, like the worst question I've ever asked, but it's actually true. Like, so I try to build something with my engineering friends, and then they're like, "Hey, you go get customer first." And I was like, "I have no demo. What am I supposed to do with this situation?" And then they're like, "Oh, this will take like a month to build." So I feel like the problem is like, how do you even manage the expectations, and then also like how do you even set benchmark? And I think like people don't understand this, but like starting a startup is not like you sit together and then like code for like 5 hours and then launch. So it's kind of like, I don't know, like I feel like it's like there's no roadmap to that. First of all, like how do you find the quote unquote roadmap or like kind of realistic expectation with your co-founder? And then before you have the demo or like show the traction, how do you raise money to kind of like quit your job to like build that?
Yeah. On the roadmap side, I think we've been very fortunate. We had a really strong thesis on what the future would look like. This like, like we have this like vision that we want to like reinvent the way that go-to-market works. One of the things that was really important to me when Austin and I decided to work together was that we're aligned that we want to build a generational company. It's clear that somebody is going to rethink the way that go-to-market works from first principles in sort of the like future of AI. And I just like, I was interested in building that company, and Austin was as well. And like that means we have to do everything right all the time. We have to be building for the long term. We have to win with integrity, et cetera, et cetera. We have to be building for the long term. And so when you like imagine that, we want to reinvent the way that go-to-market works, right? And we have this like thesis on go-to-market as a search problem of like repeatable, observable motions, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have to kind of like boil it all the way back down of like, what is something we can build in the next 6 months that takes us one step towards that vision. But that is like tractable and that we can like start to go out and like get to customers. And so the first thing that we built that we sort of like pared it all the way down, like, you keep like shaving layers back and back and back, was still honestly like a very big scope. But again, we had conviction on it, was web intent based automated outbound. And so we went out and we partnered with Clearbit and 6 Sense to sort of resell web intent data. We built the Salesforce integration to join it against that first party data, which is really important. we built out a waterfall of data vendors to basically find high quality, contact information with relevant personas. We built some like very basic AI copywriting, and then we built out a sequencing product to let you send emails to these people sort of at scale in a repeatable sort of manner. And that was like the first thing that we built, and we were like, okay, cool, we can do this in like the first 6 months. And we shipped it and we launched it, and thankfully, like I guess the rest is history. Like it's been going very well, and then you sort of like keep building out those like layers of the onion, the next concentric circles. We built out sort of all of automated outbound next with agents and plays and a bunch of more signals, and then we built out now I guess what we're building out is sort of a tool to do all of outbound, to have reps in it working day to day and things like that. Taking like maybe even one step earlier, right? How do you like convince investors that you have the right thesis and that you go raise money? We were super fortunate. Like we raised basically on our backgrounds. We like went to investors and we said, hey, look, this is like obviously a big market. Like somebody will build something in this space. I think we all agree that. Here's our thesis on it. Like it sounds right? Like I don't know. Like it's very hard to argue with like people are going to want like a repeatable, observable, scalable go-to-market motion. And then the last question is like, will we be the team to like go build it and do it? And so we kind of like really leaned into like the thing to underwrite as, at the seed round is execution and operation, right? Like, will Austin and I be the people to go out and be able to do this? Like, are we credible operators? Like we had like track records from our previous companies that like we could point at. We had references that could talk about it, and also like investors just spent a bunch of time with us and saw that like when we would say we were going to do something, and then they talked to us 2-3 weeks later, and we had done that and more. They could see that we were like credible, and that was the thing to underwrite. And so that was like really how we went out and raised the seed round. I now have like a bunch of friends that have raised seed rounds, and the thing that I always tell them, that I always push, is just like go and talk to some investors and say you're going to do something that you think is interesting, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later get coffee with them again and be like, hey, I like did that thing, and like here's the results of it, and here's like the implications, and here's what I'm going to do next, and I already started on it. And you just like are immediately in the top like decile of founders, because actually like saying you're going to do something and then doing it is like, as it turns out, I didn't realize, but like very differentiated.
I think that's such a great advice. But okay, so I have a question on this, right? So like I think so you mentioned about like, it's like you guys will try to leverage like, Clearbit and Sixth Sense. Like those are so Clearbit, it's basically like, you put your like an email database, or like it's kind of like a Clay's like last version or something like that.
Clearbit will be basically web intent data, so it helps you de-anonymize what company's web traffic comes from.
Oh, okay, got it. And then like when you guys are doing it, how do you leverage the existing data? And then I feel like that will be expensive, right? To like collab with them. And then how do you kind of convince them to be like, hey, we're like this new thing. Can you like collab with us? Or
yeah. I guess two different questions. Like one, is it expensive? And then two, like how do we convince them to collaborate with us? The second one was not too bad. A lot of these companies so data companies like that have built a data set need to monetize it as much as possible, because most of the cost goes into building that data set. And then the marginal sort of like serving of that data set is very cheap, but it's how they make their money. Some companies have decided to sort of like only serve it themselves through their own products and don't like resell. And that's sort of like one business model. You then have to build a bunch of vertical applications to get higher and higher margin on products that use that data set. And then other companies basically go wide and try to resell it through as many people as possible. And at the time, at least Clearbit, this was before the acquisition, had a program for that. Many of these other companies had a program for that. And so we were able to go and say, hey, look, like, here's our thesis, here's what we're going to do. Like, we'll sign a commit with you, and then like go and resell it. And so that was actually like quite doable. And I think like our thesis at the time as well was, we don't want to be a data provider per se. Like, I think everybody has like some special sauce. And if we were to go out and build a data set ourselves, like we would have a special sauce too. But actually, like, it's kind of more interesting to go aggregate across as many of the people with different special sauces as possible, and then get a really like do all the work like on our side to get the highest quality, the lowest cost, the highest coverage across many data vendors. Excuse me, and then we'll do that work for our customers, which is what they would do anyways. Even if we had a data set, they're just going to go and add us into some waterfall of data set anyways, because like the thing that matters most is, again, high coverage, low cost. On the cost side, the thing that you had to believe going into it was we could help you operationalize the data so well that it was worth some premium. That ended up being true, thankfully. We were able to sort of build a workflow solution around the data really effectively that made it meaningfully more valuable, right? And so when people would come and buy Unify in the early days and still today, they weren't just buying intent data or contact data or prospecting data. They were building a tool that lets them do automated outbound or do outbound as a whole. And I mean, to be honest, like, in the early days, we would lose deals from people wanting and just intent data and them going, you guys are you guys are too expensive, right? Like, well, I just want intent data. And we were like, no. Like, actually what you want is an automated outbound tool to operationalize the intent data. They would go, no, I don't. And then they would buy some intent data. And then 6 months later, they'd come inbound and be like, you're totally right. Like, we didn't actually want intent data. We want a tool that does automated outbound. And that was much less obvious in the early days, to be fair. That was like kind of like this like category we had to go out and create.
I have a question. So like, I know that you guys like a lot of the signals are from like LinkedIn and some of these like social link tools. Like, how do you rank the accuracy or like the intent from the different social platforms? And
Yeah.
I guess like what kind of content should I be creating to like generate this kind of like intent and leads?
Yeah, very little is actually from LinkedIn and from social content. A lot of it is sort of like the way that I would think about it is, reframe it, mentally again as a search problem. What are the clues that would tell you that somebody has a problem? Like engaging with content that you make that, for example, talks about how to generate pipeline using SEO, like automated SEO generation or something, right? Or like, like the outbound playbook, right? And like if people are engaging with that content, then, you might be able to guess that they are interested at least in a tool that does something like that. But that's like actually a very small sliver of the world, right? There's actually all this other stuff going on that you can tell and you can use to be like, hey, like, maybe it's like the right time right now. So for example, like when somebody raises money and they announce that they raise money, that means that they have like, they probably like raised way ahead of revenue that they have. They need to like go out and like grow into that valuation. So then they now have this like huge revenue target that they have to go hit. So that they're going to need to go generate a bunch of pipeline to hit that revenue target. And by the way, they have a bunch of money to spend on a tool. So that's like an incredible signal that you can go look for. Or, again, people like like hiring SDRs, means that they have a pipeline need. And so maybe they have low pipeline coverage. You can guess at that, and then you can like go and do it. And all of those are like largely better signals than something like social content. On the flip side, like if somebody like comments on a post and is like, oh, wow, at other person, we should buy this. Like that's obviously a good signal, but that's like such a small sliver of the world. You know what I mean? Yeah, like that doesn't happen.
I have a question. So like, let's talk about like the technology side. I was watching your launching video with like an engineer from your team. So why don't we talk about like from the backend side, like what are proprietary algorithm that you would build on your own? What are some stuff that you will like cursor it? And then like obviously everybody cursor everything these days, but like so I guess like how do you leverage the AI tool? I think one of the things that I've listened when I was like watching the talk was what I thought was like surprising was, not surprising, but like, there's like so many different AI model that's like on the market. How do you quickly pick something to use, and how sticky is that like model? Because I feel like as a non-technical person, I actually don't know how the backend works. I just code whatever like ChatGPT tell me to code. I just copy paste that into LLM. But I would say like, but like when you're building your own infrastructure, you can't just vibe code every day, right? So like, I guess like, what are some stuff that you would spend a lot of money and time to build, and then to build like a technology moat so other like GTM tools doesn't have that? And then maybe we could talk about like, do you train your own model? Like what's a kind of long-term vision for, continuously building the moat, or like continuously like reinvent your like product from like different generation to generation?
Yeah. Okay. So I hear a couple questions. So there's like the like ability to change it, like how sticky are different models and model providers, and then do we like plan on training our own models downstream of that? Um, and then there's like, how is it built? Like some just like questions around like sort of the overall infrastructure. I would split the world into sort of two places. There's like the things that we build in our product, which are like AI and AI systems, and then there's like how we use AI internally to do our work more efficiently or effectively, or whatever that might be. The things that we build into our product, basically anything that makes it into our product is like like one of our core values in the engineering team, and the company as a whole, is give a shit. And it's like this like love for craft, like from day one. Again, like our two first engineers, Sam and Solomon, like I think the first PR that I put up, we had no customers. We weren't close to having customers. We had no product. Solomon put like 45 comments on this like 400-line PR. It was just like, he just tore it to shreds, right? And he was like, look, like this is going to be code that we live with for the rest of our lives. Like, there's going to be a bunch of engineers that have to work with this in the future. Like, if we're going to do it, we should do it right. And like, I totally agree. It's like this, this mindset and like love and care for craft that's really important that we have throughout our entire product. And so like, I guess on both sides, like one, in the things that we build, and like actually the like AI systems that we give to our customers, we make sure that we're doing the work on our side. Like, for example, there isn't like a model picker in Unify, because we go out and do all the work of like which model is going to be best in which situation, how do we get it to like work most like, efficiently and effectively and quickly and highest quality, et cetera. And we like do that constantly because there's like new models that come out every single day. But then internally as well, like we use, I would say like probably less than the average startup, we use the AI like code generation tools. We've started to use them more for things like refactors and like very straightforward tasks. And a lot of the team will use like the tab completes of the world. But we don't like, very little, I think, true like AI agent generated code makes it into production at Unify. We just like have seen that it's very low quality and it doesn't have that like bar of craft. Sometimes folks in the team will generate and then they'll like go through and like probably rewrite 3/4 of it themselves, and it's like really helpful for especially early career engineers to like learn what's going on and see what's going on, and using it as sort of like a like learning aid or a tool. But it's not like, at least today, it's not like replacing software engineers by any means, which I think is like really interesting. And then in terms of like how sticky these models are on the internal use case, I think they're not that sticky today. We use sort of all sorts of models. I think everybody on the team uses a different one. My like current favorite is Codex. I think like the Codex model from OpenAI is incredible. They did a really, really great job on that. But 6 weeks ago or whatever it was, everybody was like, Claude is the best thing on the planet. And, in another 6 weeks, it'll probably be something different. So that's kind of evolving constantly. On the production side, it's very similar. We're swapping out models all the time. We've just like found very consistently that OpenAI is pretty much at the frontier of cost and quality. So we use almost entirely OpenAI models. We don't use entirely OpenAI models. We use some Anthropic models as well. But we use a lot of OpenAI models. And the real thing that we do is just like whenever a new model comes out, we have a big set of evals that we run. We do a lot of like sort of like human QA of data sets. This is something I learned back in self-driving. There's like still to this day, there's just not a set of metrics that I have found that really beat generating 1,000 examples and clicking through every single one of them. There's just like nothing that compares. Because you just like, you get a bunch of intuitions, you like see, and as it turns out, like the human mind is the best computing device ever made. So you can kind of like, see it and like intuit a lot of stuff out of that. And so that's sort of like the like stickiness of it. And then where do we go? I think, will we like train our own foundation models? Probably not. There's like incredible open source models. It's also just like so expensive to be doing the pre-training and stuff like that. And it's not that differentiated, in my opinion. I think different companies, ourselves included, who own very interesting and niche data sets will fine tune and sort of like RL their models, like, you know, open source models downstream, or if the big model providers have better APIs, they'll like fine tune those models. And we'll do that, right? Because we have this really amazing data set for our customers of who are the people that you're reaching out to, what are they saying, and what do they respond with? And we have this closed loop system that, you know, you can go all the way from triggering event in through this big workflow and then send emails out, make phone calls, send messages, whatever it is. And then people respond to those. You have this very strong signal of like what works, what doesn't. And our customers are going to want to train models, you know, bespoke to their business to help them do that, you know, again, go to market search problem at scale. And so we'll totally end up like, you know, fine tuning models ourselves internally. As it turns out, just like right now, you know, every 3 months, there's like a new frontier model that comes out that's like bigger, cheaper, and smarter. And so it's just like, we aren't going to invest sort of the expense and time while we can just like keep riding that wave up.
I wonder when you're hiring your own like engineering team, like where do you find them? So like is that like other GTM tool experience, or like or is this like more of like, you know, they just graduated, you kind of like train them yourself, they are just like hungry to learn in general? I mean, I hear you about like, you know, the people have to care about their stuff, like not just, you know, not care about their stuff. But
Yeah.
I guess like, yeah, where do you find these engineers? And yeah, maybe we'll start there, and then
Yeah.
like, yeah, like, and then how do you kind of like ensemble a team, like on who built what? Is it like one person built this feature, one person built that feature, or like everybody collectively hammer down on something within a week and then like launch?
Yeah.
How does it kind of like work?
Yeah, totally. On like where you find them, I like honestly a bunch of different random sources, a lot from like intros, in network, recruiters, like honestly, like all sorts of places. Anywhere that you can find like really great people is the key. We hire, I think actually like a very small number of like new grad engineers. My sort of deal that I always tell new grad engineers is if they want to come work at Unify, expect to feel really dumb and ask a lot of questions and like just like learn and work really hard and like, you know, work much harder than you probably think you have to like learn and grow really quickly. And in return, we will invest in you really heavily. We'll give you way more scope than you reasonably should. And because of that, we only hire a small number of them, and we like really invest in them and make them, you know, kind of like ramp them up to staff engineers in like a couple of years in sort of like the Unify way. We like largely hire sort of more like mid-career, like mid-senior engineers, folks that have, you know, done this a couple times, worked at a few companies, have their feet under them. And oftentimes we're actually really hiring for folks that engineers, especially who are like really product minded, who want to solve customer problems, want to solve sort of people's problems. And that's what they obsess about. They don't just obsess about how am I going to build this, but they obsess about what I'm going to build and why. And that's really important to us. And that I think really permeates the Eng team in a really great way. It's also kind of like what pushes you to have really great craft, like really high like quality and quality bar and like love for craft, is when you know this is going to end up with somebody who uses it in like a really special way. Especially for, you know, us building this like, you know, go-to-market tool, which is like, again, the lifeblood of companies. And so we hire for that a lot. You know, of course we like hire like a very high technical bar. I think that's like kind of a given. Yeah.
What kind of tests do you ask them to do when you're like doing these like technical interviews though?
Yeah, we do a coding interview, we do a system design interview, and then we do kind of a project deep dive. The idea is you like even more than like coding, for example. Like, you know, like most of our stack is in TypeScript. Like if somebody knows TypeScript or not matters much less to me than can they solve hard problems, and can they like unblock themselves, and are they going to like do they have like do they have a proven track record of being able to solve hard problems, is like kind of like really what the thought is. And then on the side of like how do you like actually staff the team, and or like how do you like point them at problems, I found the most success by giving each engineer really broad scope. Like we'll have engineers own projects end to end, sort of from working with me and our head of product, Mike, to like help scope it out, working with design. That like our engineers are really involved in the design process with our designers, who are incredible, and like figure out like how it looks and how it'll work and why. And then like keeping that context all the way through building it and rolling it out to customers is super important, because you kind of like never lose the thread of like what you're doing. And again, that goes back to hiring people who, one, give a shit, and two, are product minded and have a high quality bar. And then we will staff one or two. Very rarely will we have three engineers in the same project, but up to three sort of engineers on like a project. We've recently started doing more. We'll ship very quickly, and so we'll ship iteratively to customers, and then we'll kind of bundle it all up into public releases or launches of like suites of features. But by the time that we're sort of like announcing things out to the public, we've usually had either a small set of beta customers or sort of all of our customers using it for a while by then.
Mm-hmm. I have another question on this. So like, since you guys are kind of like customer facing to the revenue leaders, like how frequently as a CTO do you have to chat with the revenue people? And what does the conversation kind of look like? Just because like you probably ask like a very different set of question as like maybe your co-founder, because he have to sell it to these guys, and you guys may deal with a lot of like customer success, like so and so flag some stuff on Slack, and then you have to solve the problem. But I guess like how frequently do you have to chat with a customer as a CTO, and then like how do you kind of mentally systemize these kind of work? Like, is that like, oh, this feature is belonging to that guy built this, and then that guy do whatever the fixing is? Or is there like a team of support engineers that they're like, I don't know if they're called support engineers, but I'm making this. And then how much of it is like, I mean, I have another question, which is like, we're having you talk about the AI agent does these kind of buying, or like, are we too like advanced for like the AI building stuff for AI agents? Like, maybe we could, I feel like the agent search problem, like nowadays is like, I just hear about the term of like, AEO, like answer optimization stuff, like
answer engine optimization,
exactly.
or generative engine optimization,
GEO and AEO, like those are stuff that I'm like, oh my god, can we just chill? Like, but we can talk about, let's start with talking to the customer piece, and then we can walk into like, is a customer a human or not?
I talk to customers all the time. It's like top maybe two biggest like buckets of time on my calendar. Early on, sort of like a year and a half ago, Austin and I like really, my co-founder and I really like kind of split the world. He would do everything pre-sale, and then I would do everything post-sale. And so I've now had a lot of reps at working with, I think, revenue teams, and like kind of like helping them get to success and helping them talk through it. We spend a lot more of our time, like our post-sales motion and our like customer success motion is a lot more like consultative for like how you want to like run your whole revenue team than it is just like how to use Unify. And that has like, of course, pros and cons for us as a business, but it's definitely what's best for our customers and what's like most important for our customers. Another one of our core values is do what's best for our customers. And that is what's best. And so oftentimes we'll be like helping consult on like, hey, like this is how we've seen teams like be set up really effectively, right? Or like, here's how we think about this other demand gen channel that isn't even related to Unify, and how we've like seen that play out, and and so like I spend a lot of time talking to customers. What kinds of questions I ask is like maybe an interesting question. I don't know. I like two things that are interesting observations. One, like selling to sellers, selling to like go-to-market people is awesome because they just like know it and get it. Sometimes it's difficult because they like get it, and they'll like use that to their advantage. But oftentimes they're just like, yeah, cool. Like this is the discovery call, blah, 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 blah. Like just ask me your discovery question so we can get through it. And then like, let's, get to it. They're also like, they've been on the receiving end of like really painful and difficult and mean customers themselves. And so they're like, very nice. I find they're just like really nice people. I find at least. And like if you come with like super positive energy, they're like really positive back. So I think it's like,
that's nice.
Yeah, it's super good. And I think another thing, like the go-to-market landscape, like go-to-market tool landscape, I think is like very underserved by like good technical solutions, like really good software. And so they really appreciate, like revenue folks really appreciate when they get to talk to an engineer or somebody technical, because it's like not that common for them. They're like the fact that all of our engineers spend time with customers kind of all the time. They're in Slack channels with customers. They are talking to them all the time. They're like helping on support threads. We like don't have support engineers. I was kind of laughing while you were saying that, because like our entire engineering team is like our support engineering team. Myself included, after, I get off of calls at 5 p.m. or whatever it is. And I think that's like really important to like bake in as a culture. And I think something that's like been very special here. And I hope and I think that our customers can see, like when they're asking questions, oftentimes it's an engineer that's jumping into Slack to answer them. When they have a problem, not just like in Unify, but like in their CRM, like we'll have an engineer on the call who like built our CRM integration to help them talk about like what's going on in their own CRM, not even related to Unify sometimes. And I think that's like really cool and really special. Yeah.
I want to be mindful of time. I don't know if you have a 10 o'clock,
I
but
do.
okay, let's wrap with one minute for round. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book. This is a great question. I'll tell you, the one that I'm reading right now is Mythical Man Month. It's about how to do better estimates in software engineering. You got to just like learn,
Oh my God. Who do you invite to your dinner party?
Who'd I invite to a dinner party? That's a great question. Like living or dead?
It's your party.
Well, I don't want a bunch of dead people, because that would not be a very lively party. Right now, I would say Elon Musk.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
This is an incredible one. One of our advisors today, who I talk to every week for an hour, this guy, Jeff Quasar, he's amazing. He's one of the co-founders of Box. I learn from him more every week in an hour than I do literally with everything else.
Wow. Where can we find you outside of work?
At the park with my dog, Captain. I have a big black lab.
Oh my God. Well, Connor, thank you so much for coming to the show today. It was such a fun conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Grace. Happy Monday, everyone. This was awesome. It's fun jamming.
For sure. Let me quickly end stream.